Ahoy there, trader. It's Phil and welcome to the Analysis Edge for Thursday the 25th. There's only so many ways that I can say I'm still waiting for the S&P and the Russell to, have a clearer picture. So today we're going to look at a few different things that are actually making the returns and basically what's working and what I'm looking at. The premium poppers are popping premium before mid-morning. That's what has been pretty much going on most this week. Into what's been turning into a daily lunchtime U-turn, which then gets reversed again in the overnight futures with yet another U-turn and a subsequent gap at the open. Rounds and rounds we go. At this time, it seems like the overnight moves in the stock indexes are being held up by Atlas on his shoulders, and of course, I do mean Micron technology. There is a setup brewing there, which I do want to talk about in a lot of detail in a moment. Plus, crude oil is a cat's whisker from the $65 target that we looked at, and the Bitcoin bears are out of hibernation. So let's set the table, and then we'll look at the charts. So a little more of the mood before we walk the charts, and the honest truth is I'm still waiting on the indexes to give me a clear picture for the swings, and that's fine. Patience is the play here. So today's focus is going to be on what's actually playing out for me, or what's actually paying for me right now, which is the intraday premium points. And a really nice gapping trade on Micron technology, which is on everyone's radar, so we'll explore that today, and that has my full attention. Atlas is basically the memory chip today. Micron's 16.57 pre-market gap last time I looked. It might have changed since you're watching this in the future. And that's pretty much holding the index up by everyone, by all accounts. The bears are sitting on Bitcoin, crude oil is almost $65, and the poppers are still popping. And basically trade what you prepared for, not what you have predicted. So let's get our bearings. The pre-market is a little bit mixed, plus and minus, 0.24 all the way up to positive, plus and minus 0.3. Anything, above or below that, plus or minus. Sorry, anything below that, plus or minus, is kind of in the realms of a normal range of moves in the pre-market. So there's nothing exciting going on there. Oil is slowing down. We've seen a lot of pre-market moves in the crude oil there, and again Bitcoin's just having a little bit of a nudge high. Now then, this is where the action is looking. We've got Micron technology. We obviously had earnings overnight. Again, there is so far at the time of this screenshot, again we've got the close just there where the cursor is, and then the pre-market is just nudging above that price swing high, and again jumping above those two prior bear days. Now technically from a charting setup, that's the setup. The gap high leapfrogs over those two corrective down moves, and it also leaps above the swing high. Now the new all-time high is a bonus, it's not essential, but this is the setup that's going to get a lot of intraday traders, day traders, gap traders, earnings traders. They're all going to be literally focused on this stock today, and so there's potentially going to be a lot of excitement at the open. Again, whether we see a bullish continuation or a bearish move that just shows a little bit of profit taking, again we'll find out. But there should be a setup at the open. This is the put this stock on your radar alert. So again, just because we've seen Micron hit the headlines pretty much globally, not just locally in the US. These are just added things that are going to make it extra frothy. But the setup itself, prices gapping above two prior bear moves in an uptrend. We should see something interesting. Then obviously past that swing high, that's really the put the stock on your radar alert. Make a note of that, and then you can find these types of stocks for yourself in other areas. So lots of interest at the opening bell, perhaps through the day and potentially over the next few days. Again, this one is extra frothy at the moment, so I can take my premium popper setups, brush off the at the open setups in my systems archive that is specifically designed for gapping stocks like this, and basically get me a piece of the action. So we'll see what happens at and near the open. Now, yesterday's premium poppers on SPX, it fired cleanly. Come on, it's not firing cleanly. There we go. So we've got nice opening range there, fired clean. We've got the little arrow there. We've got our scoring system on the left here. So basically a straight up setup, again running nicely higher. quite quickly into the lunch bell. Russell was very similar. Again, we had that opening range. You can just see there's actually two ranges on the chart. You've got the 20 and the 60-minute range marked off. Had to sit through also a little bit of a retracement before the subsequent rally high. And we had a great score on this as well, so it was looking like a good setup out the gates. Thinking about crude oil for a minute, so there's very little to do here other than to sit, wait for the trade to, again, we're almost there, coming into that prior gap on the daily charts that we spoke about earlier in the week. It's the gap from the 27th of February. The price is just nudging and grinding lower. What keeps me excited is this percentage R reading is showing that we are in that trending environment still, so there's no alarm bells just yet, but we should see a little bit of profit taking, maybe a rally on the profit taking. We'll probably see when that gap's filled again. All the gap traders are going to be interested, and then we can start thinking about the gap fill traders in this case. And when we can start looking at the next possible setup and the next potential bigger move. Bitcoin is doing what Bitcoin does. Again, we are seeing that bear channel that we spoke about yesterday. The bear breakout resumption. Again, we looked at this as potential, quasi head and shoulders. Let's just call it consolidation, not really dick around with the name of it. What I've done this time, I've actually zoomed out, so taking the measured move from the recent highs down to the lows here, consider that the flagpole. This is the consolidation that we're talking about. If we take that flagpole length and project it from the start or the higher, that retracement high there, then we get this target zone here down at 44,000. We do the same with actually the larger consolidation, so that's consolidation just there. Starting, let's move that to this one here just for reference. So the larger daily chart at the top left there, you can see you've got the big flagpole, big consolidation. This push down looks like it's the first leg of the next move, and that also measuring that, again, flagpole move, that takes us down to about 44,000. So I'm going to revise my 50,000 target basically on Bitcoin and just say between $45,000 and $43,000 to the downside. So there's plenty of scope for further movement to the bear side. Again, I'd like to see price just push below that lower purple line that we commented, the 58,500 level. I think when we get below that, there's going to be a clear as the kids are saying, there's going to be a liquidation event. Basically, there's going to be more sellers than buyers, and that should drive prices a wee bit lower. So I'll leave you with a line from Howard Marks on discipline of doing nothing well. He said, you can't predict, but you can prepare. And that's generally the whole day in a sentence. I can't predict whether the S&P or the Russell or anything that we're looking at for that matter is going to pick the right direction this week. Whether MU gap holds through to Friday, whether we see the corrective move, up or down, it doesn't really matter. The thing that keeps me sane is having that system. The other thing that we can look at is the crude oil. May get to fill that gap with a splat, and the Wilhelm scream on impact at $65 is what I'll be listening for, so that I can start thinking about first taking profits. The premium popper system, for me, the day trade, the short-term trading is still doing its thing. That's just grinding away for me. I'll be prepared for the intraday rhythm at the open. I've got MU on my dance card as well. And that's basically at the open. The gap stop playbook is prepared for the setups exactly as I've described earlier. The swings are sized. So a few more days cost me nothing. Again, we're almost nudging against the targets on oil. And again, there's lots more meat on the bone when it comes to Bitcoin. We've just got that little hurdle to jump. Anyway, preparation is what I want to focus on. Preparation is what lets you act on Micron gap before the day traders have even finished their coffee. So, while there's going to be many people scrambling at the open, looking at the news, the setup's there that makes it worth looking at. So you can know these things usually well in advance of the market opening as to if should we look at Micron. Yeah, it's in all the headlines, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a good trading opportunity. But these are all the clues that I'm ultimately looking at. So, fun fact to round us off, since crude oil is approaching $65 and I'm calling for the Wilhelm scream on landing, here's the original. The Wilhelm scream, or first screamed in the 1951 Gary Cooper Western Distant Drums, where it dubbed the death of a soldier being dragged underwater by an alligator. Now, the scene was simply labelled "Man Getting Bit by an Alligator and He Screams." It was reused 2 years later in the charge of the Feather River for a private Wilhelm taking an arrow to the leg, which is where they actually got the name from that particular character. Now, Star Wars sound designer Ben Burtt later resurrected it as a joke and dropped it into A New Hope when Luke shoots a stormtrooper off a ledge. Now, because of that joke, it's become an industry inside joke and it gets used at every opportunity. It's now appeared in over 400 films. So when crude oil finally lands on $65, you'll have the soundtrack ready to go for you. So that's it for Thursday. A busy day on the things that are paying and patience in the one things, or on the things that aren't. Atlas is holding up the sky, metaphorically speaking. The premium poppers are popping, the bears are stirring, and basically trade what you've prepared for. So with that said, happy trading, and may your trades be smoother than a cashmere codpiece.